जय हिंद एवरीवन। मैं हूं मेजर मोहम्मद अली शाह और आप सबको ईद मुबारक। और आज ईद पे मेरे लिए एक बहुत ही खास तोहफा है कि मैं एक ऐसी शख्सियत, एक ऐसी हस्ती के साथ आज गुफ्तगू में होऊंगा जो किसी तारुफ के मोहताज नहीं है, जिन्होंने देश सेवा में करी है और 35 साल 35 years. Well, he needs no introduction, but if I have to do a customary round, I would say a veteran officer with 35 years in diplomatic service of India. Shri Suresh Kumar Goel has spent more than 10 years of his career in various capacities in Southeast Asia, in Singapore, Malaysia, Laos, and China. He's been a former ambassador to Laos as well. He has worked actively on India ASEAN partnership for 5 years and has personally been witness to evolution of ASEAN as the most important regional organization in Southeast Asia and developments in Cambodia, Vietnam from 1981 onwards. And we all know what happened in 1979 in Vietnam. That's the year I was born. In 1981, my goodness, what amazing contribution. He served in the permanent mission of India in New York from 1991 to 95, where he worked on peace and security related issues, including concepts of preventive diplomacy, preventive deployment, peacekeeping, peacemaking, and post conflict reconstruction as part of peace building exercises and security council reforms. He retired in the year 2013 as Secretary to the Ministry of External Affairs and Director General of the Indian Council of Cultural Relations. I'm sure many of you want to know about ITCR. We will throw some light on that as well. And is currently working on the India and China relationships in Indo-China. And you often see him on television speaking on the Indo-China relations and about the standoff, about the various issues that happen and how they can be tackled. His ideas and his analysis is appreciated world over. He was awarded the honorary doctorate by the prestigious University of Edinburgh for his work in cultural diplomacy. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my dear friends, we all know who we are going to be hearing from. Sir, thank you very much for sparing your valuable time, sir. Jai Hind, sir.
Thank you very much, Major Shah. That was really a very, very generous introduction. For a moment, it took me time to recognize that you're talking about me, but thank you very much once again. I say Eid Mubarak to everyone. First of all, it's really a very auspicious day, a day to celebrate after the 30 days of Ramadan, as they call it. I've lived in Egypt for 4 years, so I'm used to calling it Ramadan rather than Ramzan. But anyway, what is in a name? It's the same thing. And if my listeners know what Ramadan or Ramzan actually stands for, just a bit of recall. In the earlier times, in the medieval times, when basically there were lots of fightings, small tribal wars, and everything, uh, Ramadan or Ramzan in the Middle East, in the desert countries, hot countries, would signal that it is not the end of war. For that 1 month, all the armies and every fighting faction would retreat to the camp, and that 1 month would be of total bliss and peace, devoted to ibadat, devoted to the prayers, and peace for the entire humanity. That is what Ramadan meant. And the end of Ramadan basically would be the celebration, the Eid ul Fitr. Eid ul Fitr is basically the final fast, the final breaking of the fast when communities get together to celebrate. So what a Mubarak day, बहुत अच्छा काफी अच्छा दिन है ये। तो मेरे सभी सुनने वालों को ईद की बहुत बहुत मुबारकबाद, शुभकामनाएं, हैप्पी ईद। And today is also Akshay Tritiya. Uh, this is the day when most of the people who believe that buying gold on this day would bring prosperity for the whole year, they go and buy gold as much as they can afford to. So do it early if you have to, before the prices go up again. Therefore, happy Akshay Tritiya to all, everyone, and happy Eid. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. But before we start, you generated my curiosity. I was reading up about you and I was doing a lot of research, and of course, you specialize in the Indo-Pacific, Vietnam, China, in that region especially. Since you mentioned about Egypt, sir, I have a connect with Egypt as well. And I
Mm-hmm.
was a small child when I went there, and we saw the Sphinx, we saw the pyramids, and we saw the sounded light show at the Sphinx, where I am the Sphinx, and it's a grand sounding light show. And the Khan Khalili market in Cairo, and we went to Alexandria and the temples of Abu Simbel. And in fact, sir, you'll be very intrigued to know. My aunt is an Egyptian, sir. My father's elder brother's wife. Yes.
That's an interesting coincidence. Very
Sure,
interesting.
sure. Sure, sure. So which year was this, sir, when you were in Egypt?
I was there from 1998 to 2002. And as you mentioned that your aunt is an Egyptian, it's a very funny kind of a thing. I remember the day I landed in Egypt, that was the first time. And you remember the old days, people, even, I mean, in India, particularly in Delhi, North India, etc., they would wear mostly either a long shirt which went up to the knees, and either, depending upon how comfortable they are and the religion they belong to, they would either wear a pajama or wear a dhoti. Dhoti in the Lucknow style, that which went right up to the ankles, etc. So my father used to wear a dhoti and a long shirt on the top. And there I landed in Cairo, and I was good, being the Shazdi affairs at that time. Number two, I was being driven from the airport to wherever I was supposed to live. And this was a long boulevard from the airport, passing through Mohammedan Al Giza, going up to Zamalek, where my house was supposed to be. And near the Mohammedan area, I saw one person about the same height as my father. Incidentally, my father had passed away many years before that. But walking on the road, wearing exactly the same kind of shirt, and then he was wearing a dhoti. And I said, "Good God, what is my father doing here?" I couldn't even think of anything. The first thought that came to me, what is my father doing here? So that was the kind of immediately that came to my mind, that civilizationally, culturally, I'm not talking about religion here. I think there's a lot of difference between religion and culture and civilization. And the thought that came to my mind is, my God, we are so close to each other in terms of civilizational notions, civilizational ideas, uh, the values, and the way we dress, and the way we walk, and the way we do. So that is what came to my mind, that we are so close together, really. It was an interesting thing, and as I lived in Egypt for 4 years, slowly I began to realize that Egypt is no different from India in terms of culture or the business. Yes, yes,
True,
Major.
sir. In fact, we drove in the mid 90s. In fact, my father was the Indian defense attaché to Saudi Arabia. So we
Uh,
drove from Riyadh to Egypt. In fact, we saw the Suez Canal and we saw the River Nile and all. So, and we saw when we drove into Egypt, it was very, very similar to Mumbai actually. We
hmm,
saw people, very fast paced city. Great, sir.
hmm.
Sir, I would like to know when and how did you get inspired to join the IFS? Because IFS is the cream. I mean, it's like it's a dream for everyone to. And I personally,
Yeah,
for me, I think the best education is traveling. Actually, you go to
absolutely.
different places, go to different countries, you learn different cultures, languages, meet people. So, what inspired you to join the IFS?
I'm not going to give a very kind of a high flown answer and ideological answer. Uh, Two, three things. Firstly, my background is that I was born in Old Delhi area, 1954. Even though officially my date of birth is 1953, but 54 I was born in Old Delhi area. I grew up. My schooling was in Old Delhi area. Now, if anybody who has been to Old Delhi and who knows Old Delhi, it's a very unique kind of a society, very, very different from South Delhi or New Delhi. South Delhi, New Delhi is purely bureaucratic city, really. People who work in the government, they live in the colonies there. They go to a shop to buy. I don't think New Delhi, with the exception of Mandi House, where they would organize programs, cultural events, and so forth. But as people, I don't think New Delhi can be identified with any kind of culture or something. South Delhi is again basically very different. It's more like a migrant city. In any case, I was not exposed to South Delhi, but even today, if I have to compare Old Delhi with the other, Old Delhi is a very unique kind of a society. Old Delhi is a place where uh, every moment you are there, you are living with different ideas, different cultures, different religions, and different cultures. I mean, these are subcurrents of culture, subcultures. For example, in the morning when I got up, more or less simultaneously, I would hear azan from the Fatehpuri Masjid, which was very close to where I lived. My We used to sleep in the open in the summers under the people tree, and right under the people tree there was a temple, and immediately or more or less the same time, there would be the temple bells basically waking everybody up. And as we woke up, we had all the birds and you know, once in a while we would see a peacock landing on a tree, the birds, sparrows, quails, and all kinds of things. And then as we walk out, I was in Hyderabad, so you would see different people mingling with each other in business. Right near Ghantaghar, Nai Sadak, within a kilometer, you have Jama Masjid, you have St. Francis Church, you have Gurudwara Tegh Bahadur, you have Gauri Shankar Mandir, you have Digambara Jain Temple. I mean, can you imagine that you are coming across these different kinds of cultural notions within a kilometer as a child? So you tend to live with each other, you tend to understand each other, you tend to know that yes, he will be doing namaz, that is sacred for me. I will go to a temple if I want to. I will do a puja there, that is sacred for me. Nobody will interfere with that. So, that kind of, I grew up in that kind of syncretic culture where acceptance, I will not even call it tolerance. Tolerance is, to my mind, is a very a negative kind of a term, whether you don't like it, but you still have to tolerate it. It was actually acceptance of each other as they were and living with each other. Let me tell you one anecdote. I don't know how much time do we have,
No, we
but
have a lot of time. Would love to hear it from you, sir. Please, please.
I, you know, my mother was not just a vegetarian; she was a Jain vegetarian.
Okay, sir.
We became known vegetarians later on, but that's a different story altogether. So she would not even take onions or garlic and things of that kind. And so we were brought up as vegetarians. Once in a while, if we had onion, that was a kind of a thing. Party हो गई आज तो आज हमने प्याज बनाया है. That kind of a thing. So my sister, younger to me, but the eldest sister of the family, I'm the eldest in the family actually, and she's right next to me. She was going to a school where there was a lot of Muslim population. And one day, she came back home with her Muslim family. Now, just think of it. The thought that came to my mother's mind is, because she's a Muslim, ये तो अभी मेरी बेटी की दोस्त है, तो ये तो मेरी बेटी के बराबर है, लेकिन हम तो प्याज भी नहीं खाते, ये तो पता नहीं क्या क्या खाते होंगे, अब मैं क्या करूं, बेटी है, अब बेटी को मैं कैसे कहूं. सो व्हाट शी थॉट इज कि बेटी है, घर के लोग हैं, सो शी विल अंडरस्टैंड माय प्रेडिकामेंट. तो माय मदर टोल्ड हर, बेटी तुम मेरी बेटी की तरह हो, लेकिन तुम तो पता नहीं सब कुछ खाते हो, हम तो कुछ भी नहीं खाते हैं यहाँ पर ये, तो अब हम कैसे करें. तो ऐसा है कि ये तुम्हारा कप प्लेट है, ये तुम्हारा चाय बनाने के बर्तन है, ये सब दूध चीनी यहाँ पे है, बेटा अपनी चाय बनाओ, चाय पीना जरूर, लेकिन हम वो अपने बर्तन का अलग कर लेंगे, अपने बर्तन में कर लो. And that friend did not think of it that is an affront. She understood where it was coming from differently. eating habits, different beliefs, but she's still welcome as his daughter. And she did that, and she would come almost every alternate day. And when she came, she would come screaming, "Auntie, मेरा cup कहाँ है? मेरी plate कहाँ है? मुझे चाय पीनी है." You know, that was the kind of culture that I've been, where we lived with each other despite the differences. We accepted the differences and respected those differences. That is what I am. Anyway, you were asking about the foreign service. So as I grew
Amazing.
up, the school and all those things, I found that with the kind of upbringing that I had, and I come from a very, very financially mediocre family. My father used to work as a munshi in a private shop, uh, and I think that his salary at that time was something about 50 rupees a month or something. I'm talking about 60s or 70s. But that is what it was. I got a scholarship, I was studying, I was good in the studies, so everybody respected me. The only thing is that every year after exam, because I always took first, my father would be standing outside the class with a box of sweets to give it to the teachers and to all the students. That is how we were. Anyway, so with that kind of an education and upbringing, uh, I thought that I needed to be exposed to more of the cultures, more of the diversities, how different people live. That was one. And also in 70s, as you said, foreign service was the elite service. So when I appeared for the civil services, I said I must target for the highest, and there I was. I targeted for the highest with grace of God, with the God willing, I got it. And there I was. So it was a dream fulfilled because I did get exposed to a variety of cultures, variety of thoughts. At the same time, one service which gave me a lot of latitude to work the way I wanted. Nobody interfered. My views were respected. In fact, we were told right on the first day that you must be able to give your views freely and frankly. Let your seniors consider them. Whether they accept those views or not is their prerogative. And once they have given a decision after looking at all the views, it is your duty to go by that decision. So that's a kind of a thing that I grew up with, and there I am. Yes.
Sir, I must tell you, हम फौज में गए ना. So फौज में when we lot of my classmates and a lot of my friends came to the army thinking कि भाई फौज में पढ़ना नहीं पड़ेगा. So
Uh-huh.
to run from studies we joined the army. So many of us they found they were all running all right. भागना
Uh-huh.
बहुत पड़ा एकेडमी में, मगर पढ़ाई भी बहुत करनी पड़ी.
बिल्कुल.
एंड वहां तक्का करा बन गया था भाई इतनी पढ़ाई करनी पड़ रही है फौज में, अगर इतनी पढ़ाई ही करनी थी तो आईएफएस तो यूपीएससी देके आईएफएस क्यों नहीं गए
करना,
भाई.
अगर अगर वो करते तो फौज में कौन जाता? भाई हमको फौज की जरूरत है.
True, sir, true. So that's very interesting, sir. So you have been an ambassador in Laos, and ambassador is like the Lord, and it's like the ultimate. It's a dream. So tell me, how was the experience when you went as the ambassador, when you went to Laos, and how was your experience over there, sir?
First of all, let me tell you that uh, कि आपने कहा कि ambassador is the Lord. I remember our External Affairs Minister Jaswant Singh. He had come to visit Cairo. I was a Shazdi FS at that time, which is like an ambassador. Without the rank of ambassador, I was heading the mission. He had come for a visit as a minister for the Foreign Office dialogue visit, at a joint commission meeting. And he said one thing which I will never forget. And he said, there is a limit to everyone's power. Be it God, whoever it is, there is a limit to that power. And if you want to perform, it is best for you to understand those limits. So one should never ever think that you have all the power in the world. Somebody, somewhere, there will be, you'll find that there is a limit. So coming to Laos as ambassador, and again in Cairo, where I was Shazdi Affairs for more than 1 year, uh, it's an interesting job really because uh, as ambassador or Shazdi Affairs, very often uh, you are away from Delhi, and therefore there is a kind of a gap, even though communications are very good and you can always pick up a phone, talk to people. whenever you need to. But the expectation from the ambassador is that if for any reason you are not able to get an advice from the capital and you need to take a decision on the spot. It is just like in the army, when you are in the theater, you do not always get instructions from the senior general,
Correct,
and
sir.
you have to take decision on the spot. If you succeed, it is a success to your credit. If you don't succeed, if the generals understand why you didn't succeed, fine. If they don't understand, it is your neck, but you accept it. Therefore, the pleasure really is to be able to work on your own, think on your feet, take decisions, keeping in mind the overall Indian national interest, what they are for, what our policy for that country is, and then to be in a position to take the decision and take responsibility for it. And that covers all the areas: cultural projects, trade and economy, political relations, uh, Kashmir issue, Pakistan. Very often, you have to go and meet with the minister and present your point of view, etc. So that is what actually is the interesting part. Let me give you an example from Laos. Once it so happened that when I was there, uh, for some reason, there was one functionary at the middle level who thought uh, that actually the case had come from Pakistan. At that time, uh, certain countries, arrivals from certain countries, those passport holders, would be able to get visa at the airport.
Okay, sir.
You didn't need prior visa, before arriving there. This gentleman, there was some case or something, and he said we shouldn't allow that to have. We Pakistani shouldn't be allowed, and therefore, because India must be equated with Pakistan, so he said, arrive, passport holders from India, Pakistan, and some other countries, they will not have the facility of visa on arrival anymore. I just think this, I didn't even know it. I discovered it because one Indian gentleman who was actually at the airport, and he called me up. He said, "Look, this is what has happened, and I'm not able to come. So what do I do?" I use my office to intervene with the foreign office and at least get him in. But if somebody has passed a decision, this had to be acted on. And I knew that if this goes to Delhi, there would be a huge hue and cry. I did try to speak to my superior, the secretary in Delhi, couldn't get him on the line. I sent a message to him, and on my own, I went and met the Prime Minister. And the Prime Minister said to me that, "Is such a thing, why do you need to come to me?" I said, "Because it's politically very sensitive. If this news breaks out in India, the impact on the relations between India and Laos will be huge. That's the reason I've come to you to do it immediately before it has an impact." He got the point. It was the decision was reversed, and later on, the secretary he came to the line, and I told him that this is what I have done, and he said, "Yes, that was the right thing to do. Everything turned out well." Yeah. So that's a
Sir,
kind of yeah.
and one thing, which you mentioned that, never let take power too seriously, as you mentioned, sir. Let me tell our viewers, ladies and gentlemen, a few days back, we were together at a news channel studio offline. And after the show was over, we spent about 2 hours in the studio, and then the ambassador was leaving. And being the army man that I am, it's a protocol. When a senior is leaving, we always come and we always receive and we see off the senior. So I was going to see off the ambassador at that time, and he actually literally, even the news channel, he pushed everyone away. Sir, you said no, 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 please don't, not required. I will go. I will go. That was the simplicity of Ambassador Goel, and I was like really overwhelmed. I was feeling guilty. I was cringing. I was like, oh my goodness. I mean, here, His Excellency the ambassador is leaving in the car, and he's saying, no, 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 don't have to see me off. I will go on my own. That is the simplicity of a person. I mean, sir, that is really, really credible. And as you mentioned, sir, that about I had heard this saying, that a lot of people, they say, oh, you have a very good lineage, you are born so in the family, a rich family or a humble family, whatever. इंसान किस खानदान में पैदा होता है वो जरूरी नहीं है, इंसान खुद क्या करता है वो बहुत जरूरी है. So you have created a benchmark for in your family for generations, and I'm sure I mean, every your next generation will have big shoes to fit into.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shah. Thank you
So,
for very, thank you. Uh,
so did your parents ever wanted you like normally? My mother wanted me to become a doctor. She always says, well, we should have a doctor in the family, And so she got my sister married to a doctor. So he's a doctor. So her son-in-law became a doctor. तो मेरे को क्या था कि भाई कि डॉक्टर ने मैं फौज में गया उसके बाद फिर मैं मैनेजमेंट पढ़ने आईआईएम कलकत्ता गया फिर मैं कॉर्पोरेट सेक्टर में आया व्हाटएवर इट वाज अ डिफरेंट जर्नी फॉर मी बट अल्टीमेटली घूम फिर के सर सो
hmm.
सिमिलरली अल्टीमेटली वो डॉक्टर का टैग लग ही गया कैसे भी लग गया सो आपको भी सर डॉक्टर का टैग अल्टीमेटली लग गया फ्रॉम द प्रेस्टिजियस यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ एडिनबरा so was it ever it so happened with you that your parents ever wanted you to become a doctor ऐसी कभी बात आई थी
No, my parents, my my mother had studied up to the fifth class. My father left studies after doing the fourth class. They had not even thought about uh, being able to send their children to the college or the university. So when it happened, it was a moment when they were very happy that even if we could do it, our children are at least achieving what we could. They never put any pressure on us. They never told me what I should be doing, what I should not be doing. Uh, my the decision on what I should be doing was entirely my own. My father, my mother would support me, and they would simply tell me, "बेटा तुम्हें जो करना है करो. If you need any support from us, we are there for you. But ultimately, it is your decision." So my idea again, basically after doing the MSc, I got my scholarship, science talent scholarship at the end of the school. So that actually made it easier for me to go for my BSc honors physics and then MSc physics and then doing research because thanks to the scholarship that I got, it made it easier. The decision to go for the civil services again came as I saw my friends from the college appearing for the civil services, and then I tried, why should I also try for this? But no, all these were my decisions. The only thing is that 1978, when I got selected for the foreign service, probably my father, my mother had never thought that I would make it to that level really. They had thought that maybe चलो IAS हो जाएगा ठीक है अब करेंगे. But when I got the foreign services that time, once you get selected for any one of those either IAS or IFS, you can't leave that service. You can't change. So once I got selected for IFS, I couldn't change to IAS. I had to either take it or leave it. So once I got selected, then my father realized that I will not be able to stay in India for too long and mostly serving abroad. That is when he thought that he's losing his son to, to the foreign service. And he told me, and that too again very gently, very low. बेटा देख लो अगर सर्विस चेंज हो जाए तो हमारे पास तो रहोगे कम से कम बट आई जस्ट टू बट ऑलवेज सपोर्ट so yeah.
Sir, more power and respect to you, sir. You are a completely self-made person, and and in fact, your father, your parents never expected that you would probably go study further and
But they
आपको
supported they
जी sir,
supported
sir,
this is very important. Moral support is very very important. Yes.
very important, sir. Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. Moral support is always. I'm a sportsman, sir. So I'm a soccer player. So
Hmm.
when one team is a very strong team, one team is not that strong. But when you hear the people cheering in school, sir, when we would play, and when the girls used to be cheering for us, we used to be like all pepped up. And that is the time, sir.
Okay.
A lot of teams which were weak actually ended up winning also. So
Hmm.
that reminds me of Abraham Lincoln, sir, when he studied under a lamp post, and he rose to become the president of USA, the 16th president of USA. In fact, there's a letter he wrote
Hmm.
to his son's teacher. I'm sure you would have read that letter, sir. I love those wordings, sir. If I can recollect, if I have your permission, sir, I'll just say a few lines of that letter, sir. So when Abraham Lincoln's son was starting school, he wrote this letter to his son's teacher, where he wrote, "My son starts school today. It is all going to be strange and new to him for a while, and I wish you would treat him gently. It's an adventure that might take him across continents. all adventures that probably include wars, tragedy, and sorrow. So, dear teacher, will you please take him by his hand and teach him things he will have to know? Teaching him, but gently if you can. Teach him that for every enemy, there is a friend. He will have to know that all men are not just, all men are not true, but teach him also that for every scoundrel, there is a hero. For every crooked politician, there is a dedicated leader. Teach him that 10 cents earned is of far more value than a dollar found. In school, teacher, it is far more honorable to fail than to cheat. Teach him to be tough with tough people, gentle with gentle people. Teach him the wonder of books, but also give him quiet time to ponder about the extreme mysteries of birds in the sky, bees in the sun, and flowers on a green hill. Teach him to have faith in his own ideas, even if everyone tells him they're wrong. Teach him, and it's an amazing letter, sir. It's an amazing letter.
Absolutely. I recall some of the words. I didn't remember everything, but I must say I love the way your elocution is very, very grand. Fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I have had the fortune of being with you on several panels, sir. आपको देख देख के मैं सीखता हूँ. When I see you putting a no, honestly, sir, it's a fact. And I've told this to you earlier as well. When I see you presenting a
Like,
point, I'm like, sir, को देखता हूँ, and the way he's analyzing and the way he's speaking, sir. Thank you very much, sir. It's very, very kind of you. So tell us about ICCR, sir. When you were the Director General from 2010 to 2013, how was the experience and what a lot of people would want? They know roughly. A lot of people, I was doing theatre, sir, in Delhi in those days. Before I moved to Bombay, after that I did films, a few roles in films. But sir, I would like to know what role does ICCR play actually? A lot of people would want to know. They would be curious about it, sir.
okay. Now, ICCR, those 3 years from 2010 to 13, I would consider the best time of my career, really, because I really enjoyed working on those issues. First of all, what is ICCR? Indian Council for Cultural Relations, established by Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad in 1950, 1950, 52, 1950. It was established by Maulana Azad uh, as an institution for propagating, using Indian cultural ethos, cultural paradigm for developing dialogue with each other, with other countries. So essentially, ICCR was considered as the organization for two things. One, exchange of cultural groups, cultural performances with other countries. Their performances coming here, Indian groups going to the other countries. And number two, after some time, it also took over the function of giving scholarships to foreign students who wanted to study in India. So slowly, the student program became quite huge. When I left, there were about 6,000 foreign students in India under ICCR scholarship from different countries. Afghanistan was a very huge program. It in fact grew because we clearly knew that one way to get Afghanistan close to India, and there was a need to basically uh, change the fundamentalist ideology that was coming there through Taliban. So to develop cooperation, we encouraged as many as possible Afghanistani youth to come to the Indian universities, colleges, and study there. And it became very popular. It became very, very popular. Uh, uh, Almost every Afghanistani president, Hamid Karzai, then Ghani, they used to praise it like anything. So that was one. Uh, then 2010, slightly before that also, with several new initiatives taken by the parliament and Dr. Karan Singh, who was the president of ICCR at that time, and others before him, slowly ICCR had come to be understood by everyone as an institution for exchange of cultural groups between India and the other countries, including through festivals. What we did was we gave it a different kind of a twist. And we said that it is not simply cultural exchange or cultural collaboration. It is use of culture to develop communication between different countries. After all, the I thought is that how does it happen that you and I may say the same sentence, exactly the same sentence, but when you say it, Because of my own thought processes, I can attach a different meaning to it. The other person will attach a different meaning to what you said. So the meaning lies not in the words and sentences. The meaning or the implications, as I perceive, would lie in the cultural background, the culture where I come from. So the idea was to develop understandings between countries using culture as the medium. So that is what ICCR came to represent, using all kinds of cultural phenomenon, cultural platforms to develop that communication, to develop that understanding. So there were several areas which we did traditionally, same cultural performances, festivals we did, but we also added seminars. So we would choose, say, for example, like in the case if we had to do a seminar in, let us say, Malaysia, or let us say Thailand, we would use a subject for the seminar where India and Thailand would have a commonality, and also other countries from the region can share those common needs. So we would choose either Islam or Buddhism or Ramayana or Hinduism. Choose one of the subjects, hold the seminar in, let's say, Bangkok or any other city in Thailand, invite scholars from Thailand and the other neighboring countries like, for example, Vietnam, Cambodia, Singapore, Malaysia, etc., to come and participate in the seminar. And therefore, the seminar became a platform to discover the commonality of culture between India and those countries. So that is where ICCR came to be useful, because there was no other institution who could do it in this manner. Then sending Indian professors abroad. We at the time when I left, we had almost 100 Indian visiting professors teaching in the universities abroad. Very often, people would compare it to kind of Confucian centers, where the professors are sent by China to teach Chinese language in those universities. But there was a big difference. Chinese Confucius centers were an implant or a foreign soil. Everything was provided by China. Financing, professors. The only thing the university where the Confucius Center was opened had to do was provide students to go and learn the Chinese language. What we did was that we said that that is not the kind of model we can adopt, simply because it has to be something which becomes part of your university. So while we will send the professor, but the professor has to be part of your faculty. You have to provide some facilities, for example, residence or something, so that you have a stake in his success. And slowly, the professor actually became part of that university uh, culture, and became the person around whom the students would gravitate to undertake further studies on India or do research. So those two became, new ideas to basically develop that cultural understanding. Lastly, but there are many more things that we did. Another thing that we used to do was we broke the walls between cultural idioms. I'll give you an example. Uh, when I was in ICCR in 2011, I started something there called the International Jazz Festival.
The
Now, International Jazz Festival, jazz.
right, okay, right, sir.
Now, the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of jazz is that it's not Indian. The jazz is actually uh, something a Western concept. But if you listen to the music in early 50s Bollywood music, you will see a lot of influence of jazz. And there are lots of Indian jazz groups. The difference, as you study more about what jazz is, the jazz is more freewheeling kind of creation of music, where you do not have the limitation of the grammar of the North Indian ragas कि आप एक ही स्वर से शुरू करेंगे, उसी स्वर पर खत्म करेंगे, उनके बीच में
जी सर.
इतने ही स्वर होने आवश्यक हैं. You don't have the constraints of that thing. So basically,
Right.
you have freedom to create on the spot. So I said that all right, we will have International Jazz Festival in Nehru Festival, Nehru Park, because for me, jazz was not really, if it's a free music, It can't be confined to an. It has to be in a space which can attract young people. So we did the festival in Nehru Park under a tree, uh, very good lighting and good sound system. Every day we would have two groups, one group from abroad and one group from India, so people could actually see what Indian jazz is like and what, let us say, the jazz group from Israel is like or France. They could compare, and it was such a fabulous thing. Uh, Started 3 years. There used to be 10,000 people listening to the music. Free space, Nehru Park. And when I retired, I started, which I couldn't continue because of lack of financing, but I started International Contemporary Dance Festival. Again, the idea was that contemporary dance may sound modern, may sound Western, but contemporary dance is actually based on the rigorous classical grammar. So you have Uday Shankar ji who started contemporary dance based on Kathak. There are groups in India who are doing contemporary dance based on Bharatnatyam or Kuchipudi or Odissi. They're using different kinds of classical dance forms to create completely new things. There are many groups which have done that. I will not take names, and they were hugely successful. So the idea was that you create something new, break the boundaries, do not keep walls. Don't say this is classical, this is modern or contemporary. Don't say this is Indian, this is Western. Uh, at the end of my last year, we had the ASEAN summit in Delhi, and we had to create one group, one dance program, music, dance, music. So we got one group each from each ASEAN country, and we paired each of that group with one group from India. We did that choreography in Rashtrapati Bhavan. And when the choreography took place, none of the spectator, none of the audience could make out what was Indian performance and what was the ASEAN performance. They mixed so much together so well. So that is called breaking the boundaries. Use culture to break the boundaries, permeate each other's society, become one. When we say Vasudev Kutumbakam, that was my motto. So Vasudev Kutumbakam, not just because we live in different rooms, but break those walls, be together.
So that's amazing, sir. That's really amazing. That remind me of Tansen, sir. When Tansen used to sing, चिराग जल जाया करते थे उस वक्त. So right from MP in Rewa, he would. उसके बाद अकबर ने बोला हमको चाहिए, and there was a big thing. And that's what. And music is the language of the soul, sir. A
Absolutely.
person who does not like music, I don't understand. Some of the
Hmm.
music is something which is like wow. It is amazing, sir. And sir, it is so wonderful being in conversation with you, and I'm learning from you, sir. मतलब मजा आ रहा है बिल्कुल, और बिल्कुल दिल नहीं कर रहा है आपको छोड़ने का. मैं जानता हूँ आपको आपको भी प्यास लग रही है, sir. Also, I would like to know one more thing. Sir,
मैं
what is the
आपको एक
secret?
बताना चाहता हूँ अच्छा, इसी 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 कॉन्टेक्स्ट में, आ, अभी जो बात होती है म्यूजिक की या कथक की या किसी की, कथक में जितने ज्यादा छंद, जितनी ज्यादा कोरियोग्राफीज वाजिद अली शाह ने लिखी है, इतनी किसी और ने नहीं लिखी है. वाजिद अली शाह साहब ने राधा कृष्ण के इतने लिखे हैं कि आप फिर भूल जाएंगे कि ये हिंदू थे या मुसलमान थे. तो मैं खाली एक चीज कहना चाहता हूँ कि भारतीय संस्कृति में इंडियन कल्चर हैज नो प्लेस for distinction on the basis of religion. Our culture is multi-religious. Our culture incorporates different thoughts, and is once you begin to look at it, architecture, you can't make a distinction between who did what. It's purely Indian, Indian culture, Indian civilization. Yes.
That is very true, sir. That is very true, sir. So, also one more thing I want to ask you, sir. I mean, you mentioned that you were 1954 born, and you were, in though officially on paper it's 53. Sir, you look so fit. You look so fit, and I am not being biased
I
because of my fondness for you, sir. Generally speaking, मतलब I have to tell this to you. Very interesting, sir. हालांकि आपके बारे में बहुत जानता था, मैं सब कुछ जानता था, but like खास तौर से last 2 days I was like, okay, I am in conversation with Ambassador Goel, so let me read up more. So आप अगर गूगल करेंगे तो there is one IFS officer 2006 batch
Mm-hmm.
by the name of Suresh Kumar Goel. ओके ओके
Yes, yes,
ओके
yes,
तो जब
yes.
मैं गूगल कर रहा था तो मैं देखा IFS ऑफिसर 2006 बैच सुरेश कुमार गोयल मैं है तो मतलब
I'm not
2006 was a bit was a bit far-fetched, but it was believable. Yet it was believable. So I want to ask you, sir, what is the secret of your fitness? Do you do yoga? Do you play golf? क्या आप इतने fit हैं, agile, touch wood. So what is the secret of your fitness, sir?
I played golf. I do yoga. I do yoga. I do meditation. Uh, there are two things, Major Shah, if I can say it. One is that I do believe that there is a superior being, whatever you call it. I am a student of physics, and I know that even if I am a physicist, I cannot control everything. When I said that there is a limit to my power, it's because ultimately there is a limit to what I can control. And if I can't control everything, there must be something else. Therefore, I do believe in a superior being who has more cards in his hands or her hands, and therefore I cannot believe that I can control everything. Therefore, uh, believing in that superior being, there is somewhere I have to leave things to it or him or whatever it is. I believe in Gita. When I say karmandev adhyakaraste ma phaleshu kadachan, it's simply that I must perform, I must do what I'm supposed to do. I must do it faithfully, I must make all my efforts, but I should not think or I should not assume that because I have done this, I will get I'm the rightful owner of what actually comes out of it. Sometimes it may happen, it may not happen. Things are beyond my control. But also to not do things because things are not beyond my control, I'm not doing my karma. I must do my karma, but not get totally bound to the result or to the outcome. I must accept that if I don't succeed, I have not succeeded. Therefore, at the end of the day, when I go to sleep, I leave my worries behind and I have a good night's sleep. I have peace. And in the morning, when I get up, I do my exercises, I do my yoga, and alhamdulillah, the day begins again. So,
So I must share one small anecdote with you. It's a mid 90s May. My father was a defense attaché to Saudi Arabia, I told you. So
hmm,
I was in a boarding school in Ooty, Lawrence School, Lovedale. So I from Coimbatore, I came to Mumbai. From Mumbai, I was flying to Riyadh. Air India flight, and I was going by economy class, obviously. So I was going there, and suddenly, then the flight steward and the air hostess came, and they said, "Okay, which meal and can I have your passport?" And I showed them my passport, and so blue passport होता है ना, blue passport. तो
uh,
यहाँ पे मरून रंग का पासपोर्ट था, डिप्लोमेटिक पासपोर्ट.
yes.
तो अच्छा मेरे को इल्म नहीं था सर कि भाई पासपोर्ट ही मेरा पहली मर्तबा बना जिंदगी में. So उस टाइम पे I was in school, I was a kid that time. So मेरे लिए आम पासपोर्ट है, उस पे लिखा था डिप्लोमेटिक पासपोर्ट. For me it was like passport. So जैसे ही मैं एयर होस्टेस को दिखाया और जैसे ही मैंने फ्लाइट स्टूवर्ड को दिखाया, they all were पूरे जहाज में ना सर कुछ
अच्छा,
सॉरी सर, माय कैट जस्ट पास थ्रू, सो सॉरी. तो पूरे जहाज में कुछ एक हसल बसल चल गई. हाँ है. So अच्छा, then suddenly sir, then like 2-3 air hostesses came, 2 flight stewards came, and they're like, you have a diplomatic passport? I was like, yes. So come. There is a seat open in the business class. They upgraded me in the flight straight away.
good.
तो मैं
चलिए, फायदा
तो
हुआ ना. हाँ,
फायदा हुआ. तो मैं बिजनेस क्लास में बैठ गया वहां पे. अच्छा, नाउ आई वाज फॉक्स्ड. आई डिड नॉट नो कि अच्छा तब उम्र भी ऐसी थी सर कि उसमें मेरे को आई डिडंट इवन नो एट दैट टाइम कि व्हाट अ डिप्लोमेट मींस. आई हैड नो क्लू. I didn't know how passport looks like. Again, this one. Sorry, sir. My cat. She's like,
no, the cats, they passing through. They
so,
are.
so, so, so I was like quite flabbergasted, and then that was the time I realized, acha, okay. Then I asked my parents when I reached Riyadh, कि भाई क्या बात है भाई, कि what was this VIP treatment I was getting? Then they told me that it's about the whole thing of Then I
Hmm.
understood. Okay, all right. Sir,
Hmm.
I would last before I let you go, I would like to know your various assignments. I would like to know your interactions and your experience with the defense attaches in different places where you must have interacted with
Hmm.
different attaches, which is in the army the most prized posting actually, a defense attache. And sir,
True.
what has
Uh,
been your association with them, sir?
Uh, well, almost all the missions where I have been, there have been different attaches, and we have had very, very good interactions with all of them. My first interaction, I still remember, was actually in Singapore, where I had gone to learn the Chinese language. I was a probationer, as you would call it, that time. And the defense attaché Singapore being a port, the defense attaché used to be from Navy, called Naval Attaché. It was Captain M. Mohan Varghese Koetra. Captain M.V. Koetra. I think if you Google, he retired as Vice Admiral. Uh, Very well-known person, quite cerebral, I would say. And so we used to go to his home, and we used to have interactions with him on foreign policy, strategic aspect. One thing that I would say is that every defense attaché that I came across were thorough professionals. I mean, they
Yes, this guy is really disturbing me, sir.
so they own you. This is okay. That's okay. The caps
Sir,
own you. So
sir.
there were all the defense attaches. Then in Malaysia, it was a military attache. Uh, uh, there was one. He was colonel at that time. Colonel Yadav, retired as lieutenant general here. Uh, from then China, we had a defense attache, Colonel Bali at that time. Everybody was thorough professional. They knew exactly what they were doing. They so what impressed me about all of them was professionalism, and then how to make how to get the maximum out of even the smallest thing that they could get. Now, China, for example, the availability was not quite good at that time. So we were very impressed with the kind of house that Captain Koetra had made. There were those statues all along the staircase, Paris staircase. So to be able to basically make a good house with whatever is available, with the capacity to offer excellent hospitality, even when you are actually short of staff, being able to maintain that kind of home, family, social circles, professionalism, uh, very impressive, really, all throughout. And most of the defense attaches I know, as we went along, they rose to become very, very high level in their own outfits, whether it was Air Force or Navy or Army. So, very impressed. But the most interaction I had was in the United Nations when I was actually looking after the peacekeeping operations. So whenever there was a rotation of the troops, whenever we had that, and usually there would be one major or one lieutenant, and the person who was responsible to coordinate with me on these matters was the military attaché in Washington. He was brigadier at that time. So we used to interact with each other, but they would come and they would basically be able to present a very professional point of view at the UNDPKO. That is where I had the maximum interaction. So, as I said before, highly impressed with the professionals,
Sir, sir.
and they became good friends. They all became very good friends as we went along.
That's very nice to know, sir. And sir, it was wonderful being in conversation with you, sir. Thank you very much for sparing your time. Sir, any last message for the youth of a country who aspire to be diplomats or bureaucrats or join the civil services or who want to join the government services? So a lot of youth would be getting inspired by you. In fact, a lot of people say that, oh, my financial state at home is not so good. I cannot really do well. But here is a living example. Here is somebody who has risen to the pinnacles of success, ladies and gentlemen. So you can learn straight from him. So, sir, any message for a youth of a country before we let you go, sir?
Uh, First, I think I don't know what message to give really, but I think the most important thing as you grow up, you must have ambitions. You must have ambitions, and you must dedicate yourself to achieve that ambition. it becomes fun. It becomes really then you keep on saying, ah, this is what I have to do. I have to do only 50%. Let me try for the 70%. Keep trying for that. Even if you're not able to achieve it, at least with the satisfaction that you tried for it. Just keep trying for whatever you want to achieve. Be yourself. Do not copy others. You are an individual. You are your own person. You must make your own target and try and achieve them. That's all I would say.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. And sir, if you permit me to share one small analogy with you, a small story with you rather. What happened was, like you went to Singapore to learn Chinese, sir. So after in the year 2008, after my short service from the army, I was in IIM Calcutta, and recession had set in 2008. So companies were not coming to IIM campus. Imagine. So बाकी का क्या हाल हुआ होगा? You can imagine, sir. So मुश्किल से एक चाइनीज कंपनी ने बोला हम आएंगे कैंपस पे. Now we all are very excited that the first company coming on our campus was a Chinese company. And we said, okay, let's go ahead. And they said, we will not come to your campus. We will have the interview at ITC Shinar Bangla in
Mhm.
Calcutta, this hotel over there. So we
Hello.
arranged a mini bus and हम सब पूरा बैच उसमें बैठ के
Uh,
कोट टाई पहन के वहां पे पहुंच गया गर्मी में. And so everyone, no one is less than the other. तो
okay.
ऐसा क्या है हम में जो मेरे क्लासमेट में नहीं होगा कि मेरे को हायर करें, उसको नहीं करें. तो नो वन लेस इन द अदर. लोग आईआईटी से आए हैं, कोई सो आईआईटी आए हैं, कोई आर्म फोर्सेस आए हैं, सो दे डिफरेंट डिफरेंट. एंड आई वाज वन ऑफ द लास्ट, आई वुड से, आई वाज नॉट द ब्रिलियंट गाइज. एंड पीपल परसीव, अरे आईएम से तो मतलब मजे ब्रेन नहीं, ऐसा कुछ नहीं सर. अब अ डफर लाइक मी, इफ आई कैन गो देयर तो मतलब एनीवन कैन गो देयर. सो नाउ व्हाट हैपेंड वाज, सो as I was entering, my mind was working कि ऐसा कि मैं क्या इंटरव्यू में जवाब दूं that they should hire me on. So I saw three people, like a lot of people cannot distinguish between a Korean or a Chinese, or because the features are same, but I'm sure you can distinguish. I can distinguish, sir.
So then
Like
I can't.
okay, okay. Sir, earlier, before I served with the Assam Rifles, I could not distinguish between a Naga, a Manipuri, a Mizo. उसके बाद
Mhm.
I can distinguish between a Naga, Manipuri, Mizo ही नहीं. I can tell between a Naga के ये आओ Naga है, अंगामी Naga है, चांग Naga है, चाकेसांग, लोथा, कोनियाक. I can tell the tribes. So तो मेरे को लगे कि फर्क तो मेरे को उस टाइम तक मालूम नहीं था. So as I entered, there were three Oriental people standing over there, and I thought ये शायद हमारे उस company के होंगे. I went and introduced myself to them. I was wearing a three-piece suit, गर्मी में. So they were Koreans. So then I told them that I converse in sign language and in English or whatever. I said I want to learn a bit of Chinese.
Mhm.
Why? I said, okay, I have an interview, and this idea sparked to me when they asked me, why should we select you? Why not any of your classmates? And I can say, because I'll mug up a few lines in Chinese. I'll say I speak Chinese. And so anyway, so they call up their Chinese friends. They taught me a bit of Chinese, like how are you? What's your name? How are you?
Mhm.
Ni hao mar, ni hao. थोड़ा बहुत मैं सीख के जब मैं इंटरव्यू के लिए बैठा, they asked me, why should we select you? Why not anybody else? I said, because I speak Chinese. आप मेरे को बीजिंग भेजोगे, I will not
Mhm.
have to start afresh and
Mhm.
learning Chinese again. I would have learned the Chinese. I would manage very comfortably. So I
Mhm.
conversed with those थोड़ा
Ah,
बहुत टूटा फूटा Chinese with them, and I got selected. I got the
very good.
offer letter from them. वो अलग बात है, बाद में earn the company. Thank you, sir. So one had to be street smart as well.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
so so yeah, that is my association with Chinese small bit. So it was, and of course class nursery मैंने करी थी. My father was posted at the Indo-China border, Tawang. वहां पे थे
Mhm.
तो टाका वैली से नर्सरी करी. So it was such a pleasure speaking to you, sir. मजा आ गया, and I just don't feel like letting you go. But thank you very much for your time, sir. Truly appreciate, sir. Truly appreciate.
Thank you very much, Major Shah. It was a great pleasure. And I wish we could talk for longer, but I think there should be a limit to everything.
राइट सर, राइट सर. सर ऑलमोस्ट 1 घंटे को होने को आ रहा है और मेरे को मालूम नहीं पड़ा. मैंने आपको मैसेज में लिखा था सर. अक्सर हम लोग टाइप करते हैं 20 मिनट, मगर कॉन्वर्सेशन ऐसी इंट्रीगिंग और इंटरेस्टिंग हो जाती है कि वक्त का तकाजा मालूम नहीं पड़ता कि वक्त कहाँ गुजरा. एंड दैट
Thank
इज योर मैजिक सर. थैंक यू वेरी मच सर.
you very much. Thank you. Bye bye. All
बाय
the
सर.
best.
जय हिंद. थैंक यू सर. सुना दोस्तों आपने Ambassador Suresh Kumar Goel, he's such an inspiration, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my dear friends. And if he can reach to the pinnacle of success, so can you. So let's share the story as much as we can, and let's make the world a better place to live in, and let's share such stories coming in. Take care, have a great Eid, have a great day, have a great year ahead. Jai Hind.